All right, I feel we are live and in person. So we are up and running on the webinar. It is exactly 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on the date we're doing this. So, as I always do, if you've been to the webinars before, gang, we typically have a few minutes of chat, chit chat of just letting people come in and jump in because not everybody can be on time when they want to be. But what we're going to do is maybe talk a few, fun things that's going on with our lives. So, right now here in the San Antonio region, a couple big things. The pollen is super high and it practically killed me last night. So I have been snotty and yucky all day. This has been one of the worst mountain cedar seasons here. So if you are in and not around the San Antonio region, that might be okay for you because this time of year is pretty rough. It's always January, February that hits everybody typically hard. And it's not just me. It's like you go into a clinic and say, I need a steroid shot because I have mountain cedar. And they're like, yeah, you're like the 10 millionth person that's come in. Show me your butt and I'll stick you with a needle here. Okay, fun stuff there. Some other cool things is 1604 and I-10 is about to be completed today. They have that overpass that goes from 1604 West into 10 West being completed. And these are the flyovers. So anyone who's been around the San Antonio region, they know it's been a perpetual state of construction in and around 35, I-10 and 1604. Those two giant intersections just always have under construction. So what does this mean? It means the tallest flyovers in the state are finally being completed. And it's like, it's nerve wracking. You get up on that one that goes to I-10 South and you're like 200 feet up in the air and you're looking out over space. It's pretty amazing. So that's getting done. They're opening it up, I believe, last night. So that's kind of cool. Those projects, I think we're in the B for billion range, just in that area. So it's big news for us, just kind of alleviate some of the traffic, save us a few minutes here and there. Other fun news. So my son Drake turned 18 yesterday, and man, do I feel old. So we took him to dinner last night. Drake is now 18, high school junior, doing good, getting straight A's. So it's such an interesting thing. You turn 18 and the kids are like, they don't really care any longer. Like, Drake, what can you do now that you couldn't do yesterday? Vote. That's about all they can do. So don't let me forget to renew his driver's license. Okay, we got to do that. Other fun news. Amy just celebrated her 7th year with Rentworks a couple weeks ago. So congratulations to Amy for sticking around and tolerating us this long. We love you. You do a great job. We can't do things without you. You're just a fantastic part of the puzzle here. Arturo, believe it or not, celebrated 9 years. 9. I will say Arturo and his team, they have been at the forefront of the remote team member revolution in this industry. Arturo was our basically our first hire, and he's been with us ever since. He does everything. I mean, he wears so many hats, and he's so valuable to the team. It's great to have him still with us. And I was joking in the pre-show, yeah, it's 9 years of prison. How you feeling? And he's doing good. So appreciate that very, very much, Arturo. Thank you for being a part of us. And any other tidbits that somebody wants to throw in there? Stacy, I know you're dying to tell us about your life affairs. Come on, your dog, cats, what?
Well, she just
I
got
just
back
got
from a
back from,
crazy vacation.
yeah,
Nice.
Cancun, Mexico. I got back yesterday. 5 nights, 6 days, beautiful weather, all-inclusive resort. It was a nice little break. Did some
Cool.
excursions. Water was
Did you avoid
crystal clear. It was
sunburn?
beautiful. I did.
Sunburn?
I did. It
Yes.
was a little chilly, a little windy, a little cloudy, but I got sunburn the first day and then it kind of faded out the rest of the time. So it
Excellent.
was fun.
Excellent.
Hmm.
Well, great stuff, gang. Let's go ahead and get into this. I want to introduce our guest, Victoria Cowart. She's with the VP of Education with PetScreening.com. Now, PetScreening.com is a fantastic service. We've been using them since they basically formed when the founder, John, started it. Victoria had helped me out here 8, 10 years ago.
It's
And
about
it's
eight or
been
nine. Yeah.
8 or 9. Yeah, it's been evolving ever since. And it just keeps getting better every year. And they've taken the industry by storm, not just multifamily, but also single family for sure. They're very involved in all the NARPM spaces, the apartment association spaces, uh, legislation with all the states. I mean, they're a big part of this industry involving pets. So give us a few minutes about and go ahead and talk about yourself, Victoria. A few minutes for us.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate being welcome to the group. Since we're talking about our sentences, I'm 40 years into the business and never tried to get out. Rate of recidivism is 100% anyway, so there's just no point. I did 35 years as an operator. I had apartment communities, mobile home communities, HOAs for a dose of humility. Do not ever pray for patience because you'll get something that will teach you patience and where your patience. So HOAs would have been that. I also had subsidized housing as well as conventional housing. So I've kind of done most things in the property management world, and I love what we do and supporting people in this world. So now I'm over at Pet Screening for 5 years, and I'm the VP of Education. So I write and deliver full educational sessions. This morning, I delivered one on renewing your lease on mental health. So that's a session I wrote for the industry because the property management industry, the operators have a big challenge in this area. The country does as a whole, and our industry is not immune. I also teach a full day of mental health first aid certification training so people can become certified as mental health first aiders. Think sort of CPR, but for the mind. And then operationally, I educate on industry math, the power of pets in property management and pet policy management, fair housing. Anything else operationally, I've taught certification courses as well, lots of different things. So I love creating those light bulb moments for people in the industry. I used to teach the half of the South Carolina property management licensing course. Talk about a sentence. That was from 6 o'clock at night till 10 o'clock at night after we had all been working all day. So the students and I both. So a triple shot latte was in my hand most of the night, sipping slowly, teaching them about cap rates and return on investment and payback period, ROI, NOI, oh my, at 9 o'clock at night. Lord. So as we say
Math
here
is
in the
tough at
South,
that time of night.
at that,
Math
well,
is
you know
tough.
what? You learn to keep it simple and make your
Mhm.
point quickly and clap loudly so that the sleepy kids in class would wake up.
So clearly, we have brought the right person on as a guest panelist with us to discuss all things pets. And
Okay.
so, what we want to do is just kind of make this a frequently asked questions session, which will spur all kinds of different discussions and vignettes and stories from the group. And of course, Victoria is going to chime in with possible corrections. I may be saying something wrong, and she may correct it in certain ways. But this is where it's going to be turning into a great discussion. So, I have roughly 12 frequently asked questions we're going to dive into. And this will be the meat of what we want to discuss. So, great one. I saw some of your show notes before, Victoria, on one of your other presentations. And what percentage of renters will apply with a pet?
So that's a good question. And I don't know that I can answer it exactly that way. So I'm going to try it a little different. I'm going to spin it just a little bit for you, Brad. In all the research I do about pets and housing, I've got a Pets are the New Kids presentation I do, an education session I do. I'm finding somewhere between 65 to 75% of homes in the country have pets. So really your question might be, what percentage of renters apply truthfully with pets?
Mm,
And what can you do about that? And so that's kind of where we'll go with the pet screening conversation when you're ready. But everything I've seen, somewhere between 65 to 75% of homes in the country have pets or assistance animals. And pets really are becoming the new kids. There are articles out there about how people are postponing marriage and postponing having children and how they're fulfilling those maternal paternal instincts with their pets until they get there.
hmm
So
Yep.
the pet love in this country is huge. We're spending about $155 billion a year on our pets. I mean, you can buy every person who lives in the five least populated states probably a $43,000 automobile. Every person, all five states, every year on what we spend on pets.
So, quick side
Boggling.
note: I have three German short-haired pointers,
Oh,
all
nice.
females. Daisy is 13 plus. Then we have Lodi, who's 5, and then we have uh, Lucy, who's 2. So it is like a trifecta of like craziness sometimes when they get all fired up. I know Stacy has a dog. Melanie's got a couple of them, right, Melanie? What do you have again?
I have two French bulldogs. So they're
They're
fat and
so
fart and do all the things you don't want. Not German short-haired pointers.
they're fun though. They look so fun. They run around. Stacy, you have a big dog,
I have a German Shepherd.
Oh, nice.
German
Yeah, and
Shepherd. That's a fun
she's
topic.
basically my child. Yeah, I picked a home instead of an apartment, just have a yard just for my dog. Everything revolves around her right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
There are
clearly that
people,
illustrates how important these pets are to all of us.
Aggressive
And we take this
breed,
very seriously
right?
because we
She's
are pet owners.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna throw the wrench in the monkey works here. I've got three cats, but Brad, I'm like you. I've got three girls. One of them's
Okay.
11, one of them's 10, and one of them's 2. So Brad, there's some similarity going on there. But here's the key: we're lazy at my house. We don't want to have to get up and walk something. We don't have to get up and open the door. We just roll over, and if there's a cat there, there's a cat there.
Are those
So
your
clearly
actual
we,
cats in the photos behind you?
So
no, those are,
those are
that's,
that's George Peter Thomas and I, Chat GPT. I call him George Peter Thomas. He and I worked together to create this image, and I told him I have a tortie, I have a black and white, and I have a gray and white with really good markings on her face. So I was very specific,
Boom.
and it took about 10 tries, but we got it. He doesn't listen well.
so all this is great background to really illustrate the point that roughly 2/3 or more of renters are going to be bringing some sort of a pet, and that could include, your family pet, a cat or dog or whatever, or a service animal, which we're going to get into hot and heavy here in this discussion. But what we do want to do now is talk about the pet policy of RentWorks and why we run every pet through the pet screening application process. So, kind of give you a quick background. Pet screening has an application process. So, they come in, they apply through RentWorks. We have our written pet policies that are posted in our screening criteria before a tenant ever is approved and or gives over a lease, a security deposit for the lease agreement. They review our pet policy, they see it in the screening criteria, they run through our application, they check all the boxes. All that's done prior to them agreeing to rent from us, to include seeing a draft lease agreement in form where they can decide, okay, yes, I do want to rent from them. Okay, now here's my security deposit. We do all that up front because we do lease about 400 units a year, between 300 and 400 units per year. Every year we do those lease agreements. So we're getting pretty good at the process. We've been doing it for long enough. And inside of that, we make every single applicant go through pet screening. There's some genius and magic to this. And Victoria, I want to talk a little bit about how the process works of just sending a non-pet person through the pet screening process or an ESA person through the pet screening process, and kind of talk through like what it means. Is it a 5 minute? Is it a 5 day application process? Let's go through start to end on that.
Sure, sure. I appreciate that. So, pet screening integrates with lots of different software. So often what's happening is you've got folks applying, and then they're going to get an email from us, and they're going to be, of course, they've been told by RentWorks, I'm sure beforehand, we have renter screening and we have pet screening, and we wrap that together like a bow because people like Melanie have these beautiful dogs, and Stacy and you, Brad, and they're their furry children, and they want to know that they and their furry family are welcome and they're going to enjoy their rental, right? So you guys will have told them that they will receive an email from us. They'll click that link, they'll go to the landing page for RentWorks, and they'll see three options. There's a no pet profile, a household pet profile, and an assistance animal profile. And they'll pick the one or the combination of profiles that fits for their household because maybe mom has a dog, but maybe the husband, which is a pet, and maybe the husband has a dog, which is an assistance animal. So maybe they'll have two profiles, right? So the no pet profile is the only one that's one and done, and they're done with that in 3 minutes, and it costs them nothing. But it is amazing, and we can talk about this when you're ready, amazing risk management value for all of the owners and operators out there. If they select the household pet, it might take them 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to 7 minutes, depending upon how completely they want to complete that profile. Because once they complete that profile, it's theirs. They can click and use that and share it with Airbnb, VRBO, dog groomers or walkers. So there's a pet profile that we get all that digital information down. And like I said, that can be 5 to 10 minutes. And then there's the assistance animal. Now that one's unique because it's both the profile and the process. So they're going to fill out the profile, much like a person who has a household pet. The profiles are identical, really. And so they'll complete the profile, but they'll also then begin the reasonable accommodation request process with us. And so if they've got they're going to click service animal or support animal. And then those are two different processes, right? Service animal, 2 questions, no paperwork. Is the animal necessary for a person with a disability? What work or task have they been trained to perform? Our assistance animal reviewers are going to review those answers. We're not looking for documentation in there in accordance with previously issued HUD guidance. We're looking for good, solid answers. Yes, my dog's been trained to alert me to night seizures, or to night terrors, or to an impending insulin imbalance, or to an impending seizure. No, well, then we're probably not talking about, if the answer to the first question is no, it's not necessary for a person with a disability, we're talking about a pet. If it's a support animal, because these are the two types of assistance animals, on the support animal side, that could be an animal that's trained for a task, but it's not a dog, so it comes over here. Or it's an animal just providing therapeutic benefits, so to speak. That side of the aisle, we do require, on behalf of RentWorks and all of its owners, we do require documentation. Our team goes through that documentation to make sure it's checking all the correct boxes. When and if it does, then an authenticator jumps in, contacts the provider of that document to authenticate that document, right? And so this is keeping the federal civil rights for the disabled available for the disabled, right? But we're also standing there, not as a barrier, but standing there to make sure it's valid. About 4 out of 10 of these assistance animal accommodation requests really make it from our front door, we'll say, all the way to the back door, and everything is done and everything's good, and they're checking the box with us. About 6 out of 10 then don't. But oftentimes through the middle of that, we've got this interactive process going on, that good faith dialogue, where the documentation's not quite right or they didn't give us any documentation. And we're not saying no, we're saying do better, which is also great and protective for RentWorks because we're continuing that interactive dialogue for you and letting your teams, who do all this great work for you, get back to doing that while we do this for you. That's kind
A
of how
very
that
common
works.
question. Yeah, very common question we get is, do we accept pets or do we have to accept pets, etc.? We respond to the owners in several different ways. So first, we have a leasing guarantee. So if they want to hone in on our 30-day leasing guarantee and our promise to get their home leased quickly, and we scale it down very quickly. If we advertise X and we drop it until it rents. If they want to be part of that program, they have to allow pets because we feel that that's going to give them the most exposure to the market. As you mentioned earlier, 2/3 roughly or more, give or take, are going to have some sort of pet with them on these tenants that are going to be renting these types of homes because these are high-end homes that we're renting in the San Antonio region. And obviously they're going to, 2/3 are going to have some sort of pet. So what we do want to talk about next is, do we have to accept ESAs? And I want you to maybe talk through that. So if an animal is documented as a service animal, do we have to accept them? This is always a long-standing question. The owners really want to understand that. So I could fumble through this, but I think you are the expert in explaining this. So if I were an owner to ask you, do I have to accept a service animal?
Yeah, so put a footnote, put a pin though, because when we get done with this, I do want to speak to, if you'd like me to, the additional value behind the pets, not just your leasing guarantee, but what it does for them financially in terms of dollars and how it makes sense. But to your question, assistance animal, we're going to use that as the overarching language to encompass both service and support. This is a federal civil right for the disabled, right? This is necessary for them. The frame of reference on this and the framing of how it's believed and supposed to function. These animals are necessary for them in order to be able to use and enjoy their home more fully, like a non-disabled person could. And it's necessary for them to function and to have a quality of life in your housing. And that's the frame of reference behind this. What can we do as a housing industry when you have disabled renters who are here in their ability to use and enjoy the home versus the non-disabled folks who are here? What can we do as an industry in this gap? And it's the reasonable accommodation, which is a change, exception, or adjustment to your policies that they're searching for, and that it is illegal for us not to make reasonable accommodations for the disabled. So the answer is absolutely, it's a must unless you just really want to go to court with HUD. And that's just a bad thing to do. Even just having a non-valid complaint, right? A complaint with no validity will eat your time and treasure. And so you really want to be careful that you don't have any type of valid complaint. And you certainly don't ever want to see DOJ. They show up when there's a pattern or practice of problems. That you don't want. So yes, if a reasonable accommodation has been requested by a disabled individual, there's a process we go through here at Pet Screening to help you with that. But in essence, assuming it is a reasonable accommodation, it is illegal not to make that accommodation. This is their federal civil right. This became theirs in 1988 when the Fair Housing Act was amended for the third time. Well, I won't say for the third time. It's the Civil Rights Act that was amended for the third time, but it was 64 civil rights, 68 the Fair Housing Act came out as the Civil Rights Act was amended, and then in 88 it was amended again. This is legit and strong, and you do not want to go wrong here.
So
Victoria,
the
if I
way
could
we
just
assess,
chime, I'm
yeah,
sorry, Brad. Again, just for our viewers, can you just make it very clear the difference between an ESA versus an assistance animal? I
Sure.
get those questions all the time.
Yeah,
So
because
please chime in here.
when we can't see the disability, it's hard for folks, right? So you have, and if you picture an umbrella with me, I lots of folks are cognitive and visual helps. Picture an umbrella. That's assistance animals. Underneath it, you've got service animals and support animals. A service animal is a dog, just a dog, trained for a task for the disabled. Unless you're functioning in California, then it's just a Willy Wonka definition. We don't have to go there. So a dog trained for a task for the disabled. All other animals assisting a disabled individual or providing a therapeutic benefit come under the support animal language. So a support animal, to your question, which is a really good one, Melanie, a support animal could be an animal that's trained, but because it's not a dog, it comes over here on this side of the umbrella. So if someone has a trained monkey to retrieve and open items because their mobility and dexterity challenged, it's a support animal because it's not a dog. Even though it's trained, it's not a dog, so it's over here. But the bulk of what we see a lot of today are the support animals that fall under the therapeutic benefits, such as an emotional support animal, ESAs, right? And so when you think about the fact that 48 million Americans are living with a disability, with an anxiety disorder, 25 million Americans roughly are living with a mood disorder. We have a lot of challenges, a lot of people in the country living with a mental, emotional, or substance use disorder. And so those numbers have been on the rise for many years now, right? And so you think about somebody in your life, somebody somewhere in your life, you know them or you're connected to somebody who does, has a mental or emotional disorder or substance use disorder. And you want these folks to have treatment plans. And these animals pop in there as part of their treatment plan. Now, I also know it's a TikTok game, and some folks are just gaming the system. They don't want to pay the dollars and they don't want to follow the policies, right? And so that's where we're here to help. And that's why only 4 out of 10 really make it across the line when we're doing this work for you. But
That's
when I educate, it's from a place of grace. So think of it as
that's a
part of the
great
treatment.
segue. Great segue into how we do this with our fees and assessments, because someone goes through the pet screening process, they get assessed a paw score, 1 to 5 paws. And then we apply that to a dollar amount on a monthly pet fee. And I say it like that because people think, if you say it any other way, they don't understand it. Fees you're just giving money. And this is where we use the rent work system to back up the owner in case the tenant does significant damage with the pet side. That goes towards that. In addition, this is the motivation for a lot of these folks to claim they have an ESA. And so if it's a service animal of either type, the two you just discussed, it doesn't have to be taken at face value. They can say they have an X service animal and we are allowed pushback. So talk to me a little bit about, okay, the verification of a service animal process, because obviously there's the motivation for a tenant to maybe not always tell the truth when they apply. Maybe they have some sort of, doctor that says they have something. Talk us through a little bit about that. So we're seeing applicants trying to get out of these pet fees, and here's the motivation and how they're doing it. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, first off, you're absolutely on point, Brad. Very wise here. This is a TikTok game. TikTok influencers are telling people you can get out of the policies and the pricing by telling the lie. And the lie is that you're a disabled individual. Well, karma's a beast, so someday that'll get them. If not their dog, karma will bite them, but that's okay. So we're here to work with you on that. Again, assistance animals, service animal, 2 questions, 2 answers. Is your animal necessary for a person with a disability, and what work or task has the animal been trained to perform? When they answer those questions in our platform, an assistance animal reviewer is going to look at those answers. Are they a yes? Yes, and is the work or task has been trained to perform clear and directly, reflective that this individual has a disability. The animal has been trained to awaken me to night terrors, to alert me to an impending seizure. That service animal, at that point, we're not going to ask for documentation based upon previous HUD guidance and DOJ guidance. It's a limited inquiry, especially with service animals. No documentation, 2 questions, 2 answers. But we are often taking people based upon their answers and pushing them towards a support animal, because they'll say, yes, the animal is necessary for a disability. My animal just happens to know when I'm anxious and comes and comforts me. That's not a work or task item that the animal's been trained to perform. So we'll migrate them over to the support animal side. And that's where we really do look at the documentation. So I'll give you an example. Jake was a member of the military, but what Jake gave us for his support animal was a certificate from the emotional support animals of the US. And that HUD says that's unacceptable. That doesn't tell us Jake is a disabled individual or that Jake has a non-visible disability and a disability-related need for an assistance animal. That document about the animal tells us nothing about Jake. And this isn't about the animals, it's about the federal civil rights of the disabled renter and requester. So we push back on that. Our review team member says, I've got this doggy certificate, doggy driver's license, I used to call them because some of them are shaped like a driver's license. And we push back. We don't say no, we say need to do better. Then Jake gave us his letter from the VA that told us all the various body parts and all the various percentages of disability. Well, God bless him. He really served the country. We appreciate that. Still not enough. From that, we can tell Jake is absolutely disabled, but it doesn't tell us Jake has a disability related need, what we call a nexus, a connection between the disability and the request, in order to consider that this is a reasonable accommodation request that will help a disabled renter use and enjoy their home more. So we push back one more time. That's when we got a letter from a third party credible provider that said Jake does have a disability related need for the request. Now, with that document, we then contact the provider of that document to ensure that that document is authentic. That provider produced that document for Jake with that date on it. And when all that's done, and we've done it all for you, when all that's done, then Jake's reasonable accommodation request for his dog is approved and recommended. I'll say recommended by us is really our technical language. So that's how we do the work. We're looking for the answers on the service animal side. Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. Sometimes it's this might be an assistance animal on the support side, not the service side. Then when we get over here, we're looking at that documentation, pushing back where we need to, authenticating when we get to the right point.
Fantastic explanation. Really well done. On that side too, we start asking questions and there are certain questions you just don't want to ask. You don't even really want to go down that road. This is why we lean on pet screening to ask these questions for us in a legal and documented manner because they've been trained to do this. We can't say things like, well, how crazy are you? Why do you need this animal? So we don't say those things. We won't even touch that. That's part of the pet screening service. This is why it's really become the industry norm to use this type of a service. And we've been using them for a long, long time, but it still poses questions. And that's kind of the reason why we're doing this webinar, to distill some of these kind of down to the more basic side. So you did explain what the legal difference is between a service and an emotional support animal. That's ideal. The instant ESA letter, we got to that. And what are we legally allowed to request from a tenant? And this is going to be the pet screening decision. So what can you ask from them? Just to clarify, you kind of mentioned it a little bit in the previous comments, but what are we allowed to ask them for in documentation?
So I do want to be real clear here. HUD has said, and to me personally, because I used to manage a couple thousand apartments, couple thousand mobile home lots, they have said you have a right to documentation that's reliable, right? So you can have reliable documentation, Victoria, but you can't require your own documentation, because I used to have a form. I have a background managing subsidized housing, and HUD always has a form for everything, and everyone fills out the same form, and it's done the same way. And I thought, well, we'll do that for the assistance animal piece too. And here in South Carolina, Human Affairs of South Carolina said, Victoria, you have a right to reliable documentation, not your own. So we cannot require them to go through a particular process or fill out a particular form. What we're supposed to do in the industry, those who are using us or not, is just keep our listening ears on. Are we receiving a reasonable accommodation request? And then communicating with the requester. So if I'm understanding you correctly, we're talking about a reasonable accommodation for the disabled. Is that correct? Are you willing to put that in writing for me? Do you want to talk it through with me and I put it in writing for you? And do you have any documentation you'd like to share if it's on the support side? We don't ask for documentation on the service side. On the support side, do you have any documentation you'd like to share? I was on the phone one day in a multifamily community with a German Shepherd owner. That was, Stacy, I'm very sorry. That was a dog that was on our restricted breed list in the middle of those 200 units. And he said, no, it's an assistance animal. Yeah, and I'm not giving you any documentation. You can ask me for that. And so I responded very firmly. Is that your final answer? Because I have a right to reliable documentation. And I'm supposed to receive whatever it is you want to give me and evaluate that documentation before asking for anything additional. I don't have any particular forms for you, but I'm asking you what you have and what you want to share. No, I'm not giving you anything. Well, are you ready for my decision right now then? Because this is going to be super simple and fast. Or do you want to think that through one more time? Because I have a right to reliable documentation, and I know that. And then he finally got the point and he gave me documentation. So we can't require them to go through a particular process. We can't require them to fill out particular forms. We're supposed to receive what they give us and see if it gives us enough, like Jake's example. It was the doggy driver's license. No, not enough, Jake. Letter from the VA. Thank you, bless you, appreciate your service. Not enough, Jake. Third party documentation that buttoned it all up, then we were good, right? So we keep asking until we get what we need. And if they discontinue the conversation, then they're considered to have abandoned their reasonable accommodation request. And sometimes folks give it a shot because they want to do what you said earlier, Brad, so wisely. They want to get around your pricing or your policies. And so sometimes they give it a shot with that doggy driver's license. They know they don't have more and they kind of hush up. But that's when you and your excellent team say, you got to get finished. I need some profile from you. Is it a no pet, pet, or assistance animal? If this is not working out with the assistance animal, please pivot to a household pet submission. We'll move forward from there because I do have to have a completed profile if you're going to be bringing an animal into this property, right? And so
So,
that's kind of how that
so
rolls.
the most poignant of this questions is why we do this for everybody. And you talked a little bit about this in the pre-show and how much it makes so much sense for us to run every single applicant, whether they have pets or not,
Yeah.
through the pet screening process. If they don't have a pet, it's a 3 to 4 minute, disclosure filled, form that they can go through and quickly do. But you need to explain a little bit better why we do that, because at the end, this may get them out of trouble, which also ties into insurance, it ties into acceptance, it ties into so many different things to include pet damages. So I want you to talk through that process of why we do it for every single applicant.
Sure. Sure. Couple of reasons. Number one, this is not all altruism about assistance animals, right? This is business. I ran millions of dollars of assets for many years, and you want an ROI. You want money hitting that NOI. You want that ROI. You want to improve the value of your assets and your portfolios. And so when you require every renter to complete both renter screening and pet screening, you're going to drive up the documented pet population in your rentals. And that means there's risk and there's reward. And the reward are the pet fee side, right? And so the more you document actual pets living in your rentals, the higher the revenue goes. And then it should, because there's risk and there should be reward. Risk and reward should go hand in glove for all of us. But one thing I will say is this is a risk management program of very high value. Here at Pet Screening, we're in almost 8 million doors now. 1 in 7 rentals of almost any kind in the country is using, pet screening. This becomes high level risk management because you're getting the no pet profile, the household pet profile, and the assistance animal profile. If there's a dog bite lawsuit, these profiles, having one or more of these profiles on that household will save your bacon. We had
Give
a
us a story. Give us a
yeah,
story. Come
we
on.
have a top 10 multifamily, hundreds of thousands of units across the country, multi-million dollar dog bite lawsuit. They went into the pet screening platform, fingers crossed that their team is as good as yours here at RentWorks, and that had a profile, and bingo, it had a no pet profile. That no pet profile says you don't have any pets in this home. And it goes on further to say, I understand and agree that absolutely no pet sitting inside or outside my home or visitation is allowed for any reason at any point. I understand and agree I might be subject to eviction proceedings and monetary fines if I break that rule above. I mean, it's solid. And so when the attorneys come calling, 3 questions, y'all tell me if I'm missing this. What did you know? What should you know? What'd you do about it? That's what they ask every time. What I know? I knew there were no pets in this household according to the stipulation of the renter. What should I have known? Well, that there was a pet visiting the household because they said they would never do that. Right? So they said they'd never do it. So there isn't anything I should have known, and there wasn't anything I could have done about it. They signed this no pet profile when they moved in, and then they did it each year at the point of renewal. I got 4 of them. Go pound sand. And they exited that multi-million dollar lawsuit with a smile.
That's real world, because we've seen that before as well. This is why we do this as standard practice. And
Yep.
this hedges the need for like over the top insurance, because a lot of the owners worry about, do I have the proper insurance to protect myself, the owner, and protect RentWorks from that particular pet doing any sort of damage? Let's say it's a service animal, it's approved, there's a need, all the documentation are there. And what if there's somebody comes in without a approval for a pet? Those are the worst ones, because
Yeah.
they do some of the worst damage because they don't think they have to disclose that pet. A lot of them are trying to get out of the fees up front. A lot of them might get, they might pick up a pet along the way through the lease agreement. It's not the end of the world. We do catch those things mid-lease and or prior to renewals. We do find people with pets, and it's not the end of the world. We're not going to try to evict them, but we do assess and make them go through the pet screening process and assess fees if necessary. So these things are risk avoidance for us and
Yes.
the owners, because if we have solid documentation, this will kill any sort of discovery or any sort of depositions that might come up where we have to show proof that the applicant slash soon to be tenant or existing tenant saw what they were supposed to do, they agreed to the policies, and they said they had no pets, etc. And if that is not the case, well, how can you really make us responsible? That's going to fall back onto the tenant. Now, we do allow for restricted breeds because that's a whole nother fun discussion. The restricted breeds is a list that most insurance companies have, such as Stacy's German Shepherd. No offense to the Shepherds, but they are on that
Stacy's
list.
getting
And
picked on.
I know it. It's everything from pit bulls to anaconda snakes. I mean, all kinds of things are on that. And it's I could try to go through the list, but you get it. It's a restricted breed list, and there is no solid list out there. They're all kind of variable to the insurance companies, but that could affect the owner's insurance as far as a hazard insurance, and it could not. So let's assume that we agree to allow a service animal in. It's a German Shepherd. It's a retired military working dog. It's 10 years old.
All the good
Those
things.
are we've seen that a lot. Honestly, we are in Military City, USA. We do see that on a continuous basis. We allow for that pet, but we also do ask for insurance. Stacy, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so if their pet is on a restricted breed list, we do require them to provide a dog liability policy with 100K minimum liability coverage. Again, we don't steer them to any one particular, website or insurance carrier that does that coverage. They do have to go out and get that coverage and that insurance on their own and provide us that by their move-in date, listing us as additional insured so we can keep track of if they cancel, if they don't renew, yada, yada. But we do require that if they do have a restricted breed.
Yeah, that's an internal policy to us. That's not necessarily a pet screening thing, because as she noted, we don't steer them in any direction. We don't say go to State Farm or go to USAA. It's just we don't know. We don't know their credit situation necessarily. Well, we sort of do, but we don't know their insurance situation. So we make them do it on their own and then provide that to us prior to move-in. And that's one of the ways we can kind of hedge our bets as far as making sure these animals are not doing a ton of damage. They don't have any bite claims like Victoria was talking about earlier. So those are things we do internally to ensure that we're not going to be getting ourselves into hot water.
Let me jump in
So
there, Brad, because you said something
please,
important I didn't cover earlier. So we talked about the no pet profile and how that's been helpful to that and gave that great example. The other two profiles are the household pet and the assistance animal. And we ask in both cases, has your pet or has your assistance animal ever bitten a person? And so those two profiles, that is your big risk management value there, because invariably when there's a dog bite, the assertion from the plaintiff's attorney is you knew or should have known that this was a vicious animal, it had a bite history or had a propensity to bite, and you shouldn't have let it live here. Right. And so if it is a household pet and the household pet owner has said, no, the animal's never bitten a person, right? How are you supposed to know it has a bite history? You can't strap them to a lie detector test, right? And so that checks that box for you, which I think is fabulous. There's another example I'd love to give you. I had a client call me the night before deposition. They were nervous. They had a dog bite lawsuit, but it was with an assistance animal. That plaintiff's attorney had apparently never heard of the Fair Housing Act as amended in 88 with the disability class, and had never read anything about reasonable accommodation requests for assistance animals. Their assertion against this really great provider, housing provider, and operator was you shouldn't have accepted this breed and this size animal with this kind of power. You're negligent for allowing this animal in a rental period. But it was an assistance animal. So again, the assistance animal owner was asked, has your assistance animal ever bitten a person? So that was very helpful to them first. And then secondarily was all the preparation that we had that night when we had our chat about the whole assistance animal piece and about how it is illegal to not accept a reasonable accommodation or to make a reasonable accommodation, a change, exception, or adjustment in your policies or practices, i.e., your breed and weight size, right? And so this was a wonderful thing for these folks to give me a call that evening, and they slayed that depot the next day and exited with a smile. So, what you're doing is great for you and for the owners that you're serving. So kudos to you guys again. This is
thank you.
rock solid.
Talking through our life cycle of leasing, this is where things come up. We're talked a lot about the upfront lease agreement. the application process. But inside of our lease, once they get approved and once they sign, there's some pretty strong language that dictates how we deal with pets and pet damages, et cetera. So that's tied into it. There's also going to be the pre inspections before any sort of a renewal effort, and that's where we might catch those pets. We also do in-home maintenance, of course. So if we have a maintenance crew inside of one of the homes and they happen to see a pet, we will cross-reference that to see, okay, were they allowed a lab? Oh, there's no lab on the application. The application calls for a non-pet. Those are things that we catch through the life cycle of the lease. But more importantly is the renewal inspection. We might catch pictures of dog bowls. We may catch pictures of all kinds of things. Like you could see a litter box and all of a sudden, and those things are going to tie into how we handle that renewal. And this is where we guarantee or try to, back up the owner as much as we can, making sure that they don't, get hurt in the end, because what if they have a pet mid-lease? Well, we talked about this pre-show a little bit. Would you ever try to evict somebody for having a pet? Kind of giving you a short answer, no. I mean, you can do it, but do you want to spend $10,000 or $20,000 to try to evict somebody with a pet, only to hear a judge say no, because it's not as concrete. I mean, in Texas here, we have judges, the JP judges, they're pretty jaded to a certain point, except for the rookies. The rookies will want to hear your sob story. But the jaded judges, the ones that have been in for a while, they will say, did you pay rent? Yes, no. Okay, you didn't pay rent. Okay, you're out. Next. Here, Your Honor, I'm here to try to evict this person because they have an unauthorized dog that's 20 pounds. Boy, that's a tough one. Okay, because the judge may be a pet lover, and the judges in the JP courts don't follow the law. They do whatever they want, and good luck appealing. So I would definitely not encourage anyone to try to evict someone over a pet. What we can do is non-renew them. So we only do 1-year lease agreements typically. Okay, maybe 15 months, maybe 18 months to get them on a life cycle of summertime. But we don't do 10-year lease agreements where it's difficult to get them out. We would just non-renew them for having a pet, and or make them pay a stiff pet fee and potentially a pet fine. So there's those things that can be put into the mix. So we've been going at this for about 40 some minutes. I do want to potentially wrap this up. Victoria, do you want to talk anything further about what we do with pets and pet screening?
So I'd love to hit just a couple of things, just so your owners out there can really get where you're coming from. In my Pets Are the New Kids education that I offer, I can tell you you'll get twice as many applicants when you have pet positive policies. Twice as many applicants. You will rent, and this is what my research bore out. You will rent 10 days faster. So for every owner on your call, if the rent is $1,800 a month, it's $60 a day. Every time someone moves into your house, $600 more than you would have had because it's 10 days sooner, had you not had pet positive policies, right? You can extend their length of stay by as much as 21%. If the average length of stay duration is 27 and a half months, that means you're taking them up to 33 months, which is almost 6 more months. So you're delaying turnover, you're increasing the duration value of each renter. There's no reason not to be incredibly pet positive. But I also want to celebrate that you guys are next level. You're FIDOizing your pricing, right? You're seeing what you need to see in our FIDO scoring system, and you're charging a relative FIDO pet rent monthly, if you will, right? And so
And we feel that's very fair. We feel that's very fair because a lot of people just charge a flat fee either upfront, which causes problems that move in. I mean, let's say somebody assessed a $500 move-in pet fee. Well, that's $500 more they got to give over, which is just a pet fee. And they may have a 2-pound Chihuahua. It's not going to do a lot of damage to the home, or it could. Let's not talk about Chihuahuas. But the other side of that is we feel it's very fair given the kind of pet that they want to bring into the home.
Yeah,
And it's
definitely
assessed not by
defensible and
us.
equitable. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not assessed by RentWorks. It's assessed by pet screening. And so we have that resource to assess that paw score, and it's not on us. So that's on you guys, where you guys do a very scientific formula. It's probably updated all the time to make sure it's as accurate as can be and fair as can be.
Yeah, it's defensible and equitable, and it's not based upon just two things, breed and weight. That's not always the be all end all. Stacy will tell you, I'm sure her shepherd that is her furry child is amazing. I'm sure it's well trained. I mean, people are staying in jobs they don't like because of the benefits that they have regarding their dogs, right? They literally can track this. In South Carolina, 15, I think it's South Carolina or Rhode Island, 15.5% of the people who have a dog are staying in the job where they work because of the benefit for the dog. Either they can bring it to work or they can work more from home than other jobs. So this is top level. We've really got to stop making it rough, pardon the pun, on pet lovers to get into our rental housing. If the average damage when a person moves out from their pet is $210 and you're charging a $300, $400, $500 upfront pet fee, you're already done. It's gravy after that. And with the FIDO pricing, you're charging a monthly price and or an initial price that's relevant to, the challenge of that particular animal. Maybe it's a puppy. And then if they stay with you long enough, that pet rent will go down over time as they get older and the algorithm realizes they're more potty trained, right? And so it's defensible and equitable, and they really need to embrace pets. Apartments.com or rent.com, I think it's apartments.com, says 75% of renters have pets. And they know this because of how they're looking and searching and by the parameters they're searching by. So, we can't make it hard for 75% of the renters. And most of our renters are Gen Z and millennials, and they already own 49% of the pets in the country.
Hmm.
And half the Gen Zs aren't even adults yet. They're still in their teen years. So 13 to 17, right? They're 13 to 17 and 18 to 27 right now. So half of them aren't even adults yet. And between Gen Zs and millennials, they already own half the pets in the country. We have got to totally embrace this. Find an operator like you who does great work, who partners with a good provider like us. Embrace it, make the money from it, love it, lengthen the stay, get paid, do the right things like RentWorks is doing.
You make a good point that their pet score can actually improve, their paw score can improve,
Yeah.
because we do have them do this application slash disclosure every year.
Yeah.
Every time we do a renewal, we run them through that really quickly, and things may never change, or all of a sudden their pet score improves because that pet, like you said, is now older and it
Yeah.
reaches your designed pet score and improves. So they actually
Yeah.
get charged less. So there's
Yeah.
positives to that. And the
Yeah.
other side of that is they can take that pet score to groomers and the other providers like that. That's really interesting too. I mean, we've always heard that, but we kind of forget about it sometimes that they can use that in other places, especially for boarding. If they're going to
Yeah.
board a pet, particular places, they're already kind of set up for that. So really good
Yeah, they
stuff.
can click and share, but you're in military town. Our profiles help the military move around the world easier. The one constant they have in their lives is their furry family. Their family and their furry family. And that's what their family's clinging to as a constant is their furry family as they move around the country and potentially the world. The pet profiles and the assistance animal profiles that they're completing with us help them move around the world. We are serving military housing. Liberty Military Housing rolled out all of their units with us. And so they can move from a RentWorks house, into military housing in their next place, and they'll move easier because they already have their pet profile. It travels with them. It's the one thing that does travel with them. That they don't have to do again. It is their profile. They pay for it and it's good for 12 months. And we will auto renew them if they've got us on auto renew, or we'll attempt to renew them every 12 months. And they can take that with them. And yes, click and share the whole profile with their new dog groomer or new veterinarian or new dog walker, whether it's WAG or Rover that they're going through. They can click and share the profile. So it is a tool for them as pet parents. And they're also getting a lost pet reunification system for free when they have a profile through us. They'll get an invitation to Fido Tabby Alert. They'll get a free custom etched tag and participation in the system. They tell the system that their dog is lost, might be a military dog, doesn't know its way home. We'll send out a text message to everybody in a 5-mile radius around that house who participates in Fido Tabby Alert, and we will let them know to be on the lookout for it, including pictures. And then when someone finds that military dog that some child is waiting to cuddle with, because it's the one thing they know in this town already is their dog, right? If that person finds that dog and they haven't seen that text, they'll see the QR code on the tag, scan that. Our system will put them together with the dog's family. And we have reunited tens of thousands of animals with their parents, their pet parents, around the country so far with this free system. So it's a free benefit to your renters.
Fantastic. Victoria, I really want to thank you a ton for coming on. You helped explain a very complicated issue, because this thing goes on and on and on in the Northam space, in the single family home space, multifamily space. The difference between the ESAs and service animals and other that stuff, it gets so complicated and people fight about it sometimes, because they think they know better. And you've been able to boil this down to us in just a few minutes where it makes total sense. So I really appreciate you coming on. And if we have any pending questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up here pretty quick. And with a big fat thank you for Victoria for coming on again from petscreening.com. We use them exclusively for every single applicant that comes through our system. So we wanted to thank you personally for coming on and appreciate all your assistance in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you choosing to work with us.